I paid for my sister's college. When I came to the graduation, she came with security and kicked me out.
He doesn't belong here.
That's what my sister, Marybeth, told security at the graduation party. I had spent the last 3 years sending her $700 every single month and $3,000 each academic term, money I scraped together living off ramen noodles and weekend jobs, and yet, when I showed up to celebrate her big day, the only words she could say were,
"He doesn't belong here." Maybe I should back up. My name is Everett.
I live in a one-bedroom apartment in Willow Creek, a tiny place where the heat barely works in winter, but it's mine. I drive a used Buick, the paint flaking off, but it gets me to work and back. I wasn't supposed to be at that party at Ashridge Park. I found out about it the same way I find out about anything family-related these days, completely by accident.
No text invite. No call from my mom. Not even a casual mention from my dad.
Just a handful of glittery photos dumped into the family group chat without warning, navy and gold decorations, folding tables under string lights, an elaborate cake that said "You did it, Mari," in cursive frosting.
That's how I knew. Aunt Jeanette had already beaten everyone to Facebook, of course.
My beautiful niece, Marybeth, is headed out to change the world, she wrote under a picture where Marybeth held her diploma, beaming like she'd cured a disease.
And that was fine. It was good, even.
Marybeth had graduated from Southlake University, not Ivy League, but a solid place. A place I helped keep her at. Every month, without fail, I paid her rent. $700, like clockwork. Every term, another $3,000 for tuition and books.
Never late. Never asking for anything back.
My parents used to say it was all of us doing our part.
But funny enough, all of us seemed to mean me. They weren't skipping meals. They weren't pulling double shifts. They weren't selling old electronics just to make rent like I was. But I paid it. Gladly. Because I thought, I really believed that maybe, if I kept giving, they'd see me. Maybe they'd finally treat me like I mattered. I was an only child for 9 years. Then Marybeth arrived. And everything changed. She became the light of the family. The laughter. The excitement. The future. And me? I became the backdrop. The person who was useful but never important. When the graduation photos hit the group chat, I waited a few days before texting my mother directly. "Where's the party?" I asked. Her reply came fast, like she had it ready. "Ashridge Park. Same place we had Corinne's bridal shower." No apology for forgetting to tell me. No warm "of course you're invited." Just an address. I didn't ask who was going to be there. I already knew. Uncle Arnold would be there, joking too loudly. My cousins, too many to count, sprawling across folding chairs. Dad making cracks about Grandpa's hearing aids. Everyone. Everyone except the person who had been footing half the bill. But I told myself it was a mistake. That they'd be happy to see me once I arrived. That maybe they were just busy, distracted. Hope is a strange thing. Even when you know better, you still reach for it. I put on the best outfit I had, a clean white shirt and my nicest jeans, the ones without frayed cuffs, and drove out to Ashridge Park. It was a big house. Easy to spot. I recognized Dad's pickup in the driveway, Marybeth's car, Uncle Arnold's black SUV. Corinne's dented sedan squeezed onto the grass. No sign of Grandma and Grandpa's car, though. Weird. They never missed family events. They loved them. At the entrance, 2 security guards blocked me. "This is a private event, sir," one said. "I'm her brother," I answered. The guards exchanged a look. One of them asked for my name and walked off. Minutes later, he came back, this time with Marybeth, my mom, and my dad trailing behind. Marybeth looked stunning. Flawless hair, glittery dress, expensive heels. She glanced at me once, like I was something stuck on the bottom of her shoe. Then she turned to the guards and said, "He doesn't belong here." At first, I laughed. I thought she was joking. Of course she was joking. I had sacrificed too much for this to be real. But then I saw my dad's face, that smirk. And it hit me. They meant it. "You really showed up?" my dad asked, chuckling. "After everything you've been saying lately?" "I haven't said a word," I replied quietly. My mom stepped forward, smiling thinly like I was a stain she needed to scrub out quietly. "Everett, this day is supposed to be about joy," she said. "We didn't want any issues." "I pay her rent," I said. "I cover her tuition. And I'm the one causing issues?" Marybeth scoffed. "You didn't do it for me." You did it so you could say you helped. You make everything about you. I wanted to argue. To explain. To beg them to see. But instead, I just said. Then you're welcome. Flat. Final. She turned on her heel and disappeared back inside. Dad shrugged. Maybe you should have made sure you were actually invited, he said. I didn't scream. I didn't cry. I didn't fight. I just nodded, turned around, and walked away. The drive back to Willow Creek felt longer than it was. The roads blurred past. I didn't even stop for gas, though the gauge was hovering near empty. When I got home, I sat on my bed for a long time. Then I pulled out my phone and typed a single message to Marybeth. Starting next month, you'll need to cover your own rent. Best of luck. And I hit send. The message was sent. I thought that would be the end of it. I underestimated how quickly things would unravel. 2 hours later, there was a knock at my door. Not loud, not angry, but persistent. I didn't even have to guess who it was. I opened it to find Marybeth standing there, still in her glittery graduation dress, her makeup smudged around her eyes like she hadn't slept. There was no trace of the polished girl from the party. Just someone who suddenly realized the ground underneath her was shaking. Please, Everett, she said, her voice cracking. Please don't do this. She didn't wait for me to invite her in. She just walked past me and sat down on the couch like she owned the place. I stayed by the door, arms crossed. Waiting. I can't afford rent without your help, she said, twisting the hem of her dress in her hands. You know that. Why now? Why are you doing this to me? I didn't answer right away. I just looked at her, really looked at her. For years, I had paid her bills without hesitation. I had believed that loyalty was the same as love. That giving enough would make me belong. But standing there, I realized something. All the giving in the world can't force someone to value you. She kept talking. You don't understand how hard this year's been. Exams, clinic shifts, studying. I barely had time to breathe. I leaned against the wall and stayed silent. Let her fill the space with excuses. You could have warned me, she said, her voice rising. You didn't have to just cut me off with no warning. I shook my head. I didn't cut you off yesterday, Marybeth. You did. She rolled her eyes, the same way she always did when she didn't want to hear the truth. Oh, please. That wasn't serious. Neither was your spending plan, apparently. The words hung in the air like smoke. I didn't raise my voice. I didn't argue. I just said, I didn't enjoy hearing it, but at least it was honest. She looked around my small apartment, then really looked. Noticed the chip table, the threadbare couch, the old space heater in the corner. Noticed that while I had been funding her comfort, I had been living in quiet discomfort myself. You've helped for so long, she said, softer now. Why stop now? I let the question hang for a moment before answering. Because yesterday, you confirmed it, I said. You showed me exactly how little it ever meant to you. She looked down at her lap, her fingers tightening around the folds of her dress. There was still some white frosting smudged near the hem. A leftover from the party I wasn't welcome at. I asked her a different question. Where were Grandma and Grandpa yesterday? She hesitated. Her face froze for a beat. They weren't invited, she admitted finally. Mom thought Grandpa might embarrass us. He talks too much sometimes. Complains about the music. You mean the man who loaned Dad money for his first car? The man who helped pay for Mom's surgery? She didn't answer. I checked the clock. 9:43 a.m. Right then, my phone buzzed, a blocked number. I let it go to voicemail. At 10:01, it rang again, same blocked caller. Another voicemail. Curious, I pressed play and put it on speaker. It was Grandma. Her voice cracked a little but stayed strong. Everett, honey. It's Grandma. We weren't invited either. We heard what happened. We're so sorry. Just know, we're proud of you. We'll be by soon. I'm bringing muffins and coffee. Love you, sweetheart. When I looked up, Marybeth wasn't meeting my eyes. You told them not to come, I said. Not a question. A fact. It wasn't just me, she whispered. Mom didn't want them there. She didn't want Grandpa telling old stories about Dad. I laughed, a bitter sound that startled even me. So, it's okay for people to be excluded, just not you? She stood up,
fumbling with her purse. That's not fair. Nothing about this has been fair for a long time, I said. At 11:12, I saw a silver Civic pull into the parking lot. Grandma stepped out first, wearing her favorite floral blouse, carrying a pink pastry box like it was something sacred. Grandpa followed, slower, in his veteran's cap. The one he only wore when it mattered. Marybeth didn't stick around to greet them. She left without saying goodbye, muttering something about homework. Grandma didn't ask where she went. She handed me the box, kissed my forehead, and sat down on my worn-out couch like it was the most natural thing in the world. You don't owe them a thing anymore, she said simply. Grandpa, settling into the chair with a grunt, added. She called you worthless. You're the only one who ever actually did something for this family and never asked for applause. I smiled for the first time in what felt like days. Real, steady, small. But real. We spent a few hours together eating muffins, drinking lukewarm coffee, talking about anything but the party. About life. About the tiny things that make it bearable. After they left, the apartment felt even quieter. Heavy in a way that had nothing to do with loneliness. It felt like the aftershock of something breaking, but maybe something that needed to break. I sat on my bed, coffee cup in hand, the untouched pastries still on the table beside me. And I realized something. I didn't have to keep waiting for them to love me right. I could stop. I could be done. I picked up my phone again. Opened the family group chat. Typed one simple message. Where were Grandma and Grandpa yesterday? No one answered right away. And for once, I didn't feel desperate for a reply. It took about 10 minutes before anyone replied to my message. 10 minutes of dead silence in a group chat that usually lit up at the slightest joke or photo. Finally, Aunt Jeanette answered. They just didn't feel up to it, Everett. A lie. A quick, tidy lie. The kind that sweeps guilt under a rug and pretends it was never there. I didn't argue. I didn't send a long explanation. Instead, I posted the screenshot that Corinne had shown me, the one from Marybeth's private group chat. The one where she bragged about me like I was a joke. A fool. A bank account with legs. He showed up like I told you he would, she had written. So desperate to be part of everything. Hope he heard me. He's a loser. He pays my bills and still gets treated like garbage. I posted it without comment. No introduction. No defense. Just truth, plain and heavy. The group chat froze again. For a full 15 minutes, nothing. Not even the typing bubble. Just stunned, suffocating silence. Then one by one, people started leaving. First Aunt Jeanette. Then Uncle Arnold. Then two cousins I hadn't even realized were still in the chat. No goodbyes. No apologies. Just vanished. Corinne messaged me privately. Holy cow. You actually did it. I didn't answer. There wasn't anything else to say. I grabbed my jacket and car keys. There was one more thing I needed to do. I had carried all of this for too long, the hope, the hurt, the invisible weight. It was time to set it down. I drove toward my parents' house. The roads blurred past the windows, washed in gray afternoon light. I didn't play music. I didn't rehearse what I was going to say. For the first time in a long time, I wasn't trying to win anything. I wasn't trying to be heard. I was just going to tell the truth, for me. My mother opened the door before I even knocked. It was like she had been waiting. She looked tired. Worn in a way that went deeper than the surface. But I didn't feel sorry for her. Not this time. I stepped inside without asking permission. My father was slouched on the sofa, pretending to be casual. The TV was on, muted, a baseball game flickering silently behind him. Marybeth wasn't there. I wondered if she was hiding upstairs or if they had sent her away to avoid a scene. It didn't matter. I stayed standing. I didn't plan a speech. I didn't need one. I want you to understand something, I said, my voice steady. For years, I have paid for Marybeth's life, her apartment, her tuition, her books, while I lived like I didn't matter. And you never even said thank you. Not once. Neither of them spoke. I went on. I wasn't doing it for praise. I wasn't doing it for leverage. I was doing it because I thought that's what family was supposed to do. My father shifted uncomfortably. My mother opened her mouth like she wanted to interrupt. I didn't let them. And then, when her biggest day came, the day all of that sacrifice led to, you didn't invite me.
You let me show up like a stranger. You let her humiliate me in front of your friends. My voice cracked slightly. I didn't apologize for it. You all stood there. You didn't defend me. You didn't even flinch. Still, they stayed silent. So I'm done, I said. I'm done pretending this is normal. I'm done pretending this is love. My mother finally spoke. Her voice was soft, almost scolding. Everett, airing dirty laundry like that online doesn't help anything. I laughed once, sharp and humorless. You're only upset because now other people see it too. Because you can't pretend anymore that it's all fine behind closed doors. I met my father's eyes. He looked away first. You always said family is supposed to stick together, I said. But it turns out you only meant when it's easy. When it benefits you. I pulled out my phone and showed them the Reddit post. The one that had already gathered hundreds of comments. People telling me I wasn't crazy. I wasn't wrong. I wasn't worthless. I didn't post names. I didn't have to. The truth was enough. And it was finally out there. My parents didn't say anything. They just sat there, frozen, like people who had just realized the house was on fire but refused to move. I put my phone back in my pocket. I'm not angry anymore, I said quietly. I'm free. And then I walked out the door. No yelling. No drama. Just quiet, steady steps. I didn't slam the door behind me. I didn't look back. I got in my car and drove home to Willow Creek under a sky that was slowly bleeding into evening. The sun set behind me, and with it, a part of my life I didn't need to carry anymore. When I got home, I sat down on my sagging couch, opened my laptop, and refreshed the Reddit thread. Another 100 comments. Another 100 voices saying, I see you. I understand. You're not alone. For the first time in my life, I believed it. The next morning, the sunlight that filtered through my blinds felt different. Lighter somehow. Less heavy. For the first time in a long time, I didn't feel like I had to brace myself for whatever new way my family might find to hurt me. I was out. Really out. And it didn't feel like losing them. It felt like getting myself back. Still, that didn't mean the story was finished. Around 11, I went to the grocery store. Just basic things: bread, peanut butter, a jug of cheap iced coffee. I didn't think about much. I wasn't looking for anything. Halfway through the self-checkout, I heard it. Ev? Nobody had called me that in years. I turned around slowly. Standing there, awkward and uncertain, was Curtis, my cousin. Baggy sweatshirt, worn jeans, holding a six-pack of soda and a frozen pizza. He looked like he hadn't planned to run into anyone either. He shifted his weight from one foot to the other, trying to meet my eyes, then looking away. I saw your post, he said finally. Took me a second to realize it was you, but then I remembered your old username from when we were kids. I said nothing. I wasn't angry. I wasn't even sure how I felt. I just listened. I laughed too, he admitted, his voice almost a whisper. When Mary Beth called you that name. Not because I thought it was funny. Because I didn't want to be the only one standing there not laughing. He scrubbed a hand through his hair. I didn't know you were the one paying for her place. Or that you were covering tuition. Or that they didn't even invite you. There was a pause. Something hung heavy between us, the weight of all the times I had been there, visible but ignored. Curtis reached into the front pocket of his hoodie and pulled out something crumpled. An envelope. No name on it. Just worn paper, like he'd been carrying it for a while, unsure when to hand it over. I brought this, just in case I saw you, he said, looking almost embarrassed. Didn't think I actually would. He handed it to me and turned to leave without another word. No explanations. No dramatic speech. I watched him go, stunned silent. I didn't open the envelope until I was sitting in my car, parked under the weak spring sun. Inside were three $20 bills, $60 total, and a note scribbled on the inside flap. One lunch for each time I stood there and acted like you didn't matter. I stared at it for a long time. Not because I needed the money, I didn't. It was never about that. It was about what it represented. Acknowledgement. Remorse. A tiny, fragile step toward something better. I didn't text him back. Not because I was angry. I just didn't know what to say yet. Maybe I still don't. When I got home, I called Grandma. She picked up on the first ring, like she had been waiting. I told her about Curtis. About the envelope.
About the strange ache in my chest that wasn't quite pain, but wasn't quite healing either. She listened without interrupting. Then she said something that stuck with me. Sometimes, she said, the people who stand quiet the longest are the ones who regret it the most. I told her the truth, that writing the story down, sharing it with strangers, cutting ties with Mom, Dad, and Marybeth, it didn't feel like revenge.
It felt like mourning.
Like grieving something that had never been whole to begin with.
That's because you hoped for better, she said. You didn't want to tear things down. You wanted them to build something with you.
When they wouldn't, it still broke your heart. I wiped my face with the back of my hand, pretending it was just from being tired. You don't have to carry that forever, Everett, she said softly.
Set it down now.
And I believed her. Maybe for the first time, I really believed her. Later that evening, as the sun dipped below the rooftops and the town fell into that soft, heavy twilight, my phone buzzed again.
Blocked number. I almost didn't answer. But curiosity got the better of me. I tapped accept.
Everett, a voice said, tentative but familiar.
It took me a second. Then I recognized it. Glenn. Someone I hadn't spoken to since high school. Someone from a time before all of this.
Dude, he said, almost laughing, I read your story. I didn't know it was you at first. But man, it hit hard.
My sister showed it to me and said, isn't that Everett from Mr. Donnelly's homeroom? I let out a breath, half a laugh, half disbelief. Yeah, I said. That's me. Hey, listen, Glenn said. If you're up for it. I'd love to catch up. Dinner's on me. Let's talk about anything but family drama.
There was no pressure in his voice.
No pity either. Just someone reaching out across the years because sometimes the people you least expect show up when you need them most.
I hesitated, not because I didn't want to go, but because the idea of someone simply wanting to see me without needing anything, it felt foreign.
Yeah, I said finally. I'd like that. We met up that evening.
A dusty little diner off the highway, the kind that hadn't changed in decades. We sat in a corner booth, drinking terrible coffee and laughing about everything and nothing.
We didn't talk about Marybeth. We didn't talk about my parents. We didn't even mention the Post.
We talked about old movies we used to sneak into. We talked about first cars and bad jobs and how Glenn hated his corporate job but loved his rescue dog. For the first time in a long time, I laughed without apology. I laughed without feeling like I had to earn my seat at the table. When I got home that night, I sat down by my window with a cup of cold coffee, staring out at the empty streets of Willow Creek. I thought about how small my world had felt for so long. About how I had let their approval define my worth. About how even now, the ache of being unwanted still lived inside me, but it didn't get to drive anymore.
I'm not saying everything is perfect.
There are still days when the hurt feels heavy. There are still nights when the silence rings louder than I expect.
But I'm here. I'm standing.
And I'm building something new, something that doesn't depend on being needed or useful or invisible.
And if anyone reading this is standing where I stood, at the edge of a family that made you feel small, know this. You're not crazy. You're not selfish. You're not wrong for wanting to be seen. You deserve more. And sometimes, walking away isn't quitting. It's finally beginning.
Thank you for watching the video, like it if you watched the video to the end and don't forget to subscribe. Have a nice day.